So overspeeding, that's it. So overspeeding is the reason for the accident. And probably it may not be. Here, nowhere we are saying that infrastructure is also responsible for the accident. And of course, they will not say it. So if you look at the type of road accident and road accident by type of collision, okay, the fatal accident has a share of 29%. Okay, whereas in case of type of collision, head-on collision, hit from back, they share, they have a lion's share. Okay, so this is also very important to understand. Also, I would like to tell you in a brief that in India, I think you might have heard this, almost like 1.5 lakh accidents, fatal crashes are recorded on Indian roads, which is really a great number. It's a big number. So every 4 minutes we record one fatal accident. Okay, and that's why we actually took intersections to analyze, because as I said, you can't analyze everything at a time. You have to go section by section. So we decided that let's focus on the uncontrolled intersections, which are the major, which contribute to greater extent. Okay, so if you look at the contribution of uncontrolled intersections, it is around 37%. Okay, which is quite high. And then now let's try to understand what is that which results into crashes at unsignalized intersections or uncontrolled intersections. So here onwards, what I'm going to say is uncontrolled intersections. Okay, the reason I told you the reason, because they are not controlled at all. Okay, there are no stop signs, there are no yield signs. Whichever intersections we selected, actually they did not have this kind of signages. Okay, priorities were not mentioned. It was up to the drivers of the vehicle to respect the priorities, and it was based upon the perceived safety. Okay, so now let's understand what do you mean by gap acceptance analysis. Okay, now whenever you're trying to cross a junction, okay, usually the scenario is like this. There is one minor road connecting one major road. So you take any highway, there will be always one major road and one minor road. If both the roads are of equal importance, then generally we have different ways of connecting each other. Quite often there is an overpass, okay, and they are connected with the ramps if both the roads are of equal importance. But quite often a minor road is connecting a major road. Now always remember that the vehicle on the major road is always on the highest priority, whereas the vehicle on the minor road, okay, which here we are calling it as a subject vehicle. You can see my cursor. Okay, so here subject vehicle is the vehicle on the minor road, and the conflicting vehicle is the vehicle on the major road. Now always remember, this vehicle will have the highest priority. That means this vehicle is going to cross the intersection first, and you are supposed to wait. Suppose you are driving this vehicle, then you are supposed to wait. Now when you are waiting at a stop line, imagine there is a stop line here. What you do? We do is like, once we arrive at the intersection, we stop at the stop line. We'll look for the safe gap here. Okay, is there any vehicle approaching the intersection? Okay, the vehicle is quite far. If suppose that approaching vehicle is quite far, what we do? We cross the intersection. You know that the gap is safe. Okay, you can easily cross. Now suppose that vehicle is close to you, close to the intersection. Okay, if the vehicle is close to the intersection, generally you reject the gap. That is called as gap rejection. Okay, why do you reject? Because you know it is not safe. He is coming at high speed. It is a big vehicle. Probably it may be a truck. It may be two-wheeler. It may be anything. But he is close to the intersection. He is at high speed, and you are already in a stopped condition. Okay, so you will give him the priority. So that's how we generally understand, right? So understand this, that we are studying the gap acceptance behavior of vehicles on the minor road, not on the major road. Okay, because the vehicles on the major road are on the highest priority. So now the subject vehicle is trying to cross, and then he looks for a gap here. Now, if you look at the gap, if the gap is safe, he's going to cross. If the gap is not safe, then he is going to stop and he's going to wait for the next gap. This is called as gap acceptance behavior. Okay. Now, in this case, I have shown you four-legged intersection because it has four legs, one leg this side, one leg here, on the right, and study, the spatial gap acceptance. Spatial in sense, in terms of space. How far is that vehicle in terms of distance? Now, please understand why people focused on time gaps. Now, time gap inherently it takes care of speed and distance, right? So when you say some vehicle is going to take 3 seconds to arrive or 4 seconds to arrive, that temporal component already takes care of distance as well as the speed of the vehicle. Because if you say 1 second, within 1 second he's going to arrive, that means he's fast, right? Within 5 seconds he's going to arrive, that means he's slow, or probably he might be at larger distance. But when you talk about space, please understand, you talk about only distance of particular vehicle. Just to give an example, this is your vehicle, okay? You are at stop line, you're stopping and you're looking for a gap. Now there are two vehicles on the right side. So one is the yellow color vehicle, the other one is the red color vehicle, you can see here. Now, both the vehicles, if you see, they are at different distance. They are at different distances, okay? Now, if you see, both the vehicles are arriving at the conflicting point at same time. I'm repeating again, okay? Both the vehicles are arriving at conflicting point at the same time. Why is that? Because their speeds are different. Their speeds are different. So that means now here, in this case, if you say that it is a 3 seconds time they took or 2 seconds time, both of them took, red and yellow car, both, okay? Agree that they took 2 seconds to arrive at point of conflict. So this is the red line is the location where there would have been a possible conflict if the white car decides to cross, okay? So that's the point of conflict I'm defining. Now what I'm saying is, it took 2 seconds for both the vehicles, but please understand both the vehicles were at different distance. They were at different distances from the point of conflict. Now, the driver inside this white car probably I'm saying probably might accept the gap given by red car, and he might reject the gap given by yellow car, or it may be vice versa. Or it might be same for both the cases. We really don't know. But what we know is, generally people, when they're crossing the intersections, okay, when they're crossing, either it may be a pedestrian also, whenever even the pedestrian is crossing the road, okay, you look for the vehicle, the distance of the vehicle, how far that vehicle is. The first thing what comes in your mind is how far that vehicle is. The second thought which comes in your mind is what speed he or she is traveling with. Okay, you notice that if somebody is at very high speed, then you decide, oh no, I should not go, I should stop. If somebody is at low speed, then probably you think that, okay, let's cross because anyways he's coming at low speed, chances of crashes or chances of conflict are less. That is how you perceive things, right? So what we observed, that we did a questionnaire survey and we found that even 60% of drivers, they say they look for the distance. Okay. Also, we observed that 3 seconds of gap can be accepted, can be rejected also. Now that acceptance and rejection, it actually depends upon at what distance they are. Okay. So that's why we decided that let's try to understand the spatial gap acceptance behavior of the drivers. Now, how do you do that? It's not that easy. Because finding a temporal gap from a video, it's quite easy. You fix a camera Once you fix the camera, you just find out the time taken by that particular vehicle to arrive at the point of conflict, and you at the same time you record the decision of the vehicle which is at the stop line, whether he or she has accepted or rejected the gap. So you know the time gap, and you know whether decision of the driver, whether he or she has accepted the gap or not. But you want to record now spatial gaps, that too with the speed at which they are arriving. It is going to be tough. Now, how do we do that? There are different ways. We used this approach. So we recorded the videos at different junctions. So this is the junction from Kolhapur. Okay, it's my hometown, and it was easy for me to take the permissions and collect the data. So at this junction, we fixed camera on one of the buildings. Okay, and then what we have done is we actually marked trap lines on the road. So we have marked the trap line on the road. Okay. Now please understand, when we say we have marked the trap line on the road, that doesn't mean that we have marked throughout the road. We have kept either traffic cones, or we have small white paint on the medians or on the footpath, just to recognize when you look into the video, you need to understand, okay, there is a marking over there, and that marking can be used to actually draw trap lines in your video. So whatever on the right side, the snapshot you see, okay, this is the intersection, and these are the trap lines, and that trap line is at 5 meters distance. Now what we do is, whenever a vehicle is approaching, okay, so whenever this vehicle is approaching, what we do, we try to understand its speed. Speed is easily calculated. Okay, you know what is the time taken by the vehicle to move from this point to this point, okay, or on one trap line or two trap lines, and then you can calculate the speed of the approaching vehicle. Okay, this is your approaching vehicle. And now you measure the distance also. You can measure the distance easily. How? Because you know if the vehicle is stopping here, okay, some vehicle is stopping here, or vehicle is stopping here, okay, you can see there is a vehicle which is going to take a left turn to merge here, or there's no vehicle here. But please understand, suppose this white is nothing but stop line. If there is one vehicle stopping here to look for a gap here, okay, you just measure the trap lines. Each trap line is 5 meters, okay, at 5 meters. You measure it, and then you know at what distance it is. Now you have such a beautiful data with you. If you look, this is the data you have. Now all these red points actually indicate that these are all rejected gaps. These are all rejected gaps. And all yellow points, they indicate these are all accepted gaps. Actually, what do we mean by that? So it has a graph plus it has an intersection. I have just composed it in that way. Don't focus on this intersection part, just focus on this graph. Okay. Now what I'm saying is, you have speed on y-axis, you have distance on x-axis. Okay. Now what I'm saying is, let's take example of one vehicle. Suppose this vehicle. Now if this vehicle is at 10 meters from the intersection, okay, this is the intersection. I'm considering it from this point. Usually we consider from this point, okay, but for now in this graphical presentation, I'm showing from this point. Okay. Now what I'm saying is, this vehicle is at 10 meters and traveling at 20 kilometers per hour, and it is in red. That means it's a rejected gap. So all these are rejected gaps. All these are accepted gaps. Accepted gap means what? Suppose let's take this point, a vehicle was traveling at around 55 kmph and he was at 80 meters. Means there is a vehicle on the approach on a major road which is at 80 meters and it is traveling at 55 kmph. That gap was accepted by this vehicle. Please understand, this decision is for the vehicle on the minor road. Okay. So look, the data will look like this. Now let's understand, there are certain complexities when you come across different types of intersection. Now, the first complexity is whether that intersection allows to accept the gap, okay, in different stages. Now, it all depends upon whether there's a refuge area, at that intersection. What do you mean by refuge area now? Refuge area is nothing but, suppose you have this median, okay, there's a median in between. This is the area where actually vehicles can stop. And they can look for the gap on the left side. They can look for the gap. So suppose this car, this subject vehicle, okay, you're traveling. First you will go like this. You'll accept the gap by the vehicle coming from the right side. Then you look for the left side and then you will cross the second lane. Okay. Now this is very important. If suppose this refuge area is absent, this refuge area is absent, suppose, then you have to look for gaps on both the sides. Situation becomes complex. Okay, driver gets jumbled as well. Okay, you might have seen, generally it happens when this kind of intersections are there on a road network. So you have to be very careful. Okay, you have to be very careful. So we have studied intersections only those which have refuge area. Okay, please understand this. Now we want to model this. We want to model the gap acceptance behavior. Now very simple approach is using logistic regression. Okay, so it's a binary logic model. Now what is binary logic model? I think most of you know already, but I will quickly explain to some of you probably who don't know that. Now in a logistic regression or a binary logic model, we talk about what is the probability of accepting the gap or rejecting the gap. Okay, what is the probability? What is the probability with which a person is going to accept or reject a gap? If you're traveling, you come at the intersection, okay, and then now you want to decide whether you want to cross or you want to stop at the intersection. Okay, now this decision of yours, it all depends upon various factors. Now what are all those factors? The factors are, first of all, what is my age? If I'm an old age guy, I'm 70 plus, suppose, my decision making probably would be more safer. You know, I might think, no, I should wait for a safe gap. I should wait for a long gap. If I'm a young blooded guy, you know, and I'm just a new learner, probably I might be a rash driver. You know, I will look for a small gap and suddenly I'll cross. So it also depends upon the socio-demographic characteristics of person. So socio-demographic characteristics include my age, even my income. You know, now you might ask me, sir, how income is correlated to this? Let's talk about that at a later stage. Okay, it depends upon my family. I have 5 kids with me. Suppose I have my own 5 kids. Now I might be a very a person like, probably I might think, no, I have my wife is waiting at home, my kids are waiting at home, I need to drive very safely. Okay, it also depends upon your mood at that point of time. Suppose you just had a fight with your wife, okay, or with your dad or mom. Imagine the situation, and then now in your mind, hell lot of calculations are going on. Why did I fight? Why did I do this? And then you're still driving. Your behavior completely changes. Okay, please understand, those kind of factors we have not accounted in our study. What we have accounted is gender. Okay, male or female. Okay, what we have accounted is for how long that gap. I mean, what is the size of the gap in terms of distance, in terms of time? What is the vehicle type? On which lane that vehicle was? At what speed he or she was traveling? What lane I covered? Yes, and the gender. Okay, and the gender of the driver, the subject vehicle driver. Okay, so these are the factors on which we are focusing. Now, this modeling, this logistic regression, it helps us to understand the effect of all these parameters on your decision. What is your decision? Decision is the probability. If you see your probability, this is the decision. What is the probability of accepting a gap? Okay, gap lag by a driver K. This is the equation you have. So probability of accepting a gap lag of size I, okay, size R, is equal to 1 upon 1 plus e raised to minus u. U is nothing but the utility equation. Very simple, utility equation. So what is the utility equation? It's a regression equation. Why here we call it as utility? Very simple. Because it gives you what is the utility of that. Okay, that is why it is called as utility equation. Now, what I'm telling is a simple multiple linear regression equation. Beta 1 x1, beta 2 x2, beta 3 x3. Beta 1, beta 2, beta 3 are the coefficients. Okay, where x1, x2 are all those variables which are taking care of all these parameters. You know, the gender of the driver, the type of the vehicle, in which lane he or she was, speed of the vehicle, and even you can include some geometric parameters as well. Okay, now please understand, some of these variables might be continuous, some of these variables might be discrete. Okay, now for example, gender can be male or female. Okay, transgender possibly. Okay, it can take 0 or 1 value. Fine. When you talk about speed, it is going to be a continuous variable. It can be anything, right? It can be 20 km/h, 30, 35, 40, at what accuracy you're measuring, and so on. So the beauty of this modeling part is it can account for both continuous as well as binary variables. Now I was telling you different variables that we accounted. Like look at this table actually. So these are the dummy variables. These are the variables we have accounted for. Now gender of the subject, driver, male, female, whether gap or lag. Now let me explain first what is gap or lag. Please understand it's very simple. First gap the driver accounts for is called as lag. Very simple. The first gap. When you arrive at the intersection and you look at the right side or the left side, the first gap you are going to see, it is called as lag. It's very simple. Okay. Why it is accounted separately? There is again a reason for that. Uh, I will explain at later stage because it will take some time. Okay, why lag and gaps are treated separately. Now, then the position of the conflicting vehicle, that means how far that vehicle is, whether the conflicting vehicle is two-wheeler, auto rickshaw, car, truck, whether the subject vehicle, that means the vehicle which is trying to cross the intersection is two-wheeler, auto rickshaw, car, truck, or so on. Okay, these are all different variables you can account for. Okay, now coming towards the modeling part. Now, when we develop the models, okay, we try with very simple model. Okay, simple in sense what you look for. The first thing when we do modeling, first we try to understand the correlation between the variables. This is very important, that how these variables are correlated to each other. Okay, because you don't want to account or don't want to keep two variables which are highly correlated. The reason I'm saying is it doesn't make sense, right? If one variable itself is taking care of model, okay, why do you want to have second variable? It's unnecessary and it's difficult to account for as well. Okay, because more complex your model is, please understand nobody is going to use your model. Everybody would like to have a simple model which has like variables which can be easily accounted for. Everybody wants to have this kind of models, right? Suppose if I have a very simple model which needs only one variable and which will just let's take an example, a random example of this. You want to find out your income. Okay, this is not I'm not doing any kind of Vani Jyotish Vani or what. Okay, you want to find out your income at later stage after 30 years, and it is completely based upon your income at this stage. Okay, and the model gives the result at 99% accuracy. Okay, now it is decided that your model gives results at 99% accuracy. If I just give my present income, it gives what will be my income after 30 years. Good, everybody will put his value present income and then he'll try to find out what his income will be after 30 years. Okay, but generally it's not that easy. There are various factors which are going to influence all these things. Okay, and that's why even modeling becomes difficult. Now, in our case, if you look at the logic model which we have developed, the first model, which is based upon the temporal gap acceptance, you see here, very simple model. Okay, it says that utility equation ui is equal to minus 5.91 plus 1.61 t. T is nothing but the temporal gap here. Very simple. Okay, it's a temporal gap here. Now, positive and the significant coefficient of t. Okay, positive, you can see here positive sign. Positive and the significant. Why I'm saying significant? Because this model, they are found significant at 95% confidence interval. Okay, so this significant coefficient of t indicates that as temporal gap value increases, the probability of accepting the gap, since it is a positive, okay, since it is a positive, the probability of accepting gap also increases. Time gap, of course, it's a common sense. If the time gap increases, if the vehicle is quite far, okay, if the time gap increases, of course the probability of accepting a gap increases. Now, second model, we have split time into distance and speed. Now it's very interesting again. Look at this model, very simple model. Now, please understand this UI is the utility I was telling, and this UI comes here. Okay, this UI you have to, because this is the equation for the UI, which is the utility equation. You get a number here. It can be any random value here. You put this random value here, and then you get the probability. Okay, probability, of course, we all know probability ranges from 0 to 1. Okay, so what I'm saying is here, now in this case, distance, d is nothing but distance. Distance has a positive and significant coefficient, whereas speed has negative and significant coefficient. Now, what does it mean? Distance means positive, means more the distance, the probability of accepting gap is going to increase. Simple, common sense. Minus sign for speed value clearly indicates that if the speed of the approaching vehicle increases, the probability of accepting the gap is going to decrease. Again, it makes sense to us. Okay, so likewise, we have developed model for male female separately by accounting male female in the same model itself. Now here you can, in this graph you can clearly see that, okay, if the distance, for example, if I take 40 meters, distance, okay, and if I go up, the probability of accepting a gap is around 60%. Okay, for 40 meters distance, the probability of accepting gap is 60%. Whereas for 60 meters, the probability almost hits 90%. So very simple. So that's the beauty of the logit models. You get to know what is the probability of accepting or rejecting a gap for given variable. Now I'm going to show some complex models. Okay, now this is the model for exclusively developed for two-wheelers. Now very interestingly, we have observed that in case of two-wheelers, let's look at this model. In case of two-wheelers, that means if suppose a two-wheeler is trying to cross the intersection, okay, understand this, I'm explaining to everybody. Utility is nothing but any random number, random value you're going to get here, but once you substitute this UI value in the probability, you are going to get the probability. Okay, now let's understand this. What I'm saying is, this car is nothing but the approaching vehicle, but utility is for the crossing vehicle. And which is crossing vehicle? Two-wheeler. So we are showing these models for crossing vehicles, okay, for subject vehicles. Now suppose if two-wheeler is the crossing vehicle and suppose the approaching vehicle is car, look at the coefficient, it's minus, which indicates that if the vehicle on the major road, is car, the probability of accepting the gap is going to reduce. Similarly for truck also, if the approaching vehicle is truck, the probability of accepting the gap is going to reduce. Why? The reason is because you are a two-wheeler rider. So this also indicates that generally whenever a car is approaching or a truck is approaching, two-wheeler riders are more cautious, and that is true. That is quite true. It may not be true in some cases. Okay, sometimes you might have seen two-wheelers are quite aggressive as well. They just quickly move. But however, what model shows here is, the model clearly shows that bigger the size of the vehicle, the probability of accepting gap is going to reduce. Interesting. Okay, now look at the second model, the model which is developed for car. It shows a positive and significant coefficient for two-wheeler. That means if suppose now approaching vehicle is two-wheeler and you are in the car who is trying to cross the intersection, your probability is going to increase because you are going to dominate over that two-wheeler. And generally that happens actually. It happens that when you are in a bigger vehicle, generally you dominate over the smaller vehicles. Okay, so even this kind of behavior can be captured in the models, and we have captured. Just to give an example, okay, in layman's language to tell you, let's see very simple graphical representation. Now two-wheelers and auto rickshaws accept smaller gap than car, and this is very true. If you look at this situation, many times it happens that you are waiting in the car, okay, you are waiting in the car at an intersection, and suddenly a two-wheeler fellow comes besides you and he crosses the intersection, but you are not able to cross it. You might have observed this. Or suddenly an auto rickshaw fellow comes and he crosses the intersection, but you don't cross. Okay, because you are in a bigger vehicle. So what we have observed is, just to give an example, let's take a gap value of 45 meters. Okay, gap value of 45 meters. Now for 45 meters gap value, the probability of accepting that gap, okay, gap for car is nothing but this blue. Okay, for car is just 10%, close to 10%, 10-11%. But for same gap value, the probability of accepting the gap, okay, by two-wheeler or by an auto rickshaw is almost 80%. And that is true. In India, auto rickshaws and two-wheelers are quite aggressive. You have observed this. Quite often you people, I think most of you people drive also. You people have seen two-wheelers and auto rickshaws are quite aggressive while driving, right? So this is also captured in the models that we have developed. Okay. Then you talk about lags and gap. I told you initially, what do you mean by lag? Lag is nothing but a first gap. Now, if I take a lag of 4 seconds, okay, the probability of accepting a lag is slightly higher than probability of accepting a gap. There is a reason for this. I'll explain this reason. Now, lag is nothing but first gap. Now, quite often it happens that whenever you are approaching the intersection, you are already in a state of motion, okay? And then you are already making a decision. Now, there is a difference between a decision-making process when somebody is stopped and when somebody is already in the motion. Now, what happens, that motion gives you a confidence that you can easily cross that intersection. That means you can quickly cross that intersection because you're already on a bike or in a car, you're already moving. You look for a gap, you look for a vehicle coming. If you're already moving, suddenly you tend to cross. So that's why the first gaps have to be treated differently, because quite often, the vehicles are already in state of motion. But once or in case of stopped vehicles, a person has to think of, he has to start the vehicle. You have to put in a first gear. If you're on a two-wheeler, you have to put a first gear, then you have to accelerate. So you have to think of all those dynamics, okay? And the decision-making process completely differs when you're already in state of motion. That's why we analyze this gap acceptance behavior separately for lag as well as for gaps, okay? So very important. Now let's go to the spatial gap acceptance with respect to vehicle interaction. This is very interesting, okay? Now when I talk about vehicle interaction means, what exactly I talk about? I talk about interaction between two-wheeler. I talk about interaction between two-wheeler and car, two-wheeler and truck, two-wheeler and two-wheeler, and so on, okay? So for example, if two-wheeler is waiting and oncoming vehicle is also two-wheeler, then what will happen? We have shown here in this graph. If two-wheeler is waiting and then again car is coming, then what will happen? So this kind of interactions can also be modeled, okay? Now done. I mean, we understood that gap acceptance behavior is all about all these aspects, okay? Trying to understand that what size of gap is acceptable, what size of gap is not acceptable, and so on. Now there is one size of gap that is very important for us, and that is called as critical gap, okay? Now theoretically, I am not saying practically, theoretically critical gap means it's one size of gap which is acceptable for most of the population. Means what? Means if I tell that 4 seconds of gap, okay, is accepted by all the population, I will call that gap value as a critical gap. But then how do you arrive at that critical gap value? How do you arrive at that single value? Now there are several ways of doing it, okay? There's a Raff's method, okay, method given by Raff's, and that too he has given this in late close to 50s, 1948 this method was right. It's an old method. Thereafter people used logistic regression, people used maximum likelihood method. Recently we came up with our own method, which is called as which is based upon support vector machines, okay? Very interesting. I'm not going to cover that part though. So I'm going to tell you what is critical gap, okay? So it's a size of a gap whose number of accepted gaps shorter than it is equal to the number of rejected gaps. So this is the definition given by Raff. Now what he says is, I'm simplifying. Look at this graph, okay? Now what he says is, it's the intersection of rejected gap graph and the accepted gap graph. But how he defines in such a way that the point where number of accepted gaps are equal to number of rejected gaps. Very simple. See how nicely it has been defined. What I'm saying is, below this point, see, this is the cumulative number. By the way, on y-axis you have a cumulative number. So what this Raff says, below this point, the number of accepted gaps are equal to number of rejected gaps. So at that point, you have two graphs meeting each other, okay? This point will be called as critical gap value. So in our case, we found critical gap value as 3.6 seconds. 3.6 seconds. In case of spatial gap, we found around 36 meters. So that means if somebody wants to cross an intersection, 3.6 seconds of gap value is required, or minimum of 40 meters of gap is required, okay? Please understand this. But again, this varies from intersection to intersection. It's very important. The intersections which we accounted for, those were medium speed intersections. But if you talk about high speed intersections, okay, I'm talking about intersections which are located on national highways, on expressways, and so on. Okay, generally expressways or freeways, uh, they are access controlled. Okay, we never try to have any road meeting them at a grade. Okay, we generally avoid that. So because the purpose is not served. So you talk about a national highway. If you talk about intersections on national highways, those intersections can be called as high speed intersections because vehicles are approaching at higher speed. Okay, but our intersections were low speed. That's why if you look at the gap value, they are quite smaller. Okay, 3.8 second and 36 meter. Now these are the models which we developed. I explained you this model. Okay, uh, these models, in the previous models, we just accounted for a vehicle type, single vehicle type. But in these models, we have accounted for the interaction between the vehicles. Means two-wheeler interacting with truck, two-wheeler interacting with two-wheeler, two-wheeler interacting with car. See, even this kind of models can be developed. Okay, and then when you actually use different techniques, there are different values you will come across. But more or less, this value will be close to, I mean, the average value would be similar, even by using different methods. Okay. Sometimes it may vary. Then you need to look into why that is happening. Okay. So we used different techniques. We used RAF's method, logit method, maximum likelihood lag method, and then we found, okay, this is the value of the gap. Okay, fine, that's okay. Then let's find out which value is the best. Okay, that is again based upon the literature review. You try to see that which model is more reliable, and then you select that. Okay, so we chose 3.68 second. Now, the highway capacity manual, the manual which is given by US, that manual gives value which are 5.5 seconds and 6.5 seconds. So yeah, look at our values. Our values are quite less, almost like 1.5 seconds less. That means our drivers are quite aggressive. They are quite aggressive. Okay, and it's true actually. Indian drivers are quite aggressive. Now that's why it's very important to understand the gap acceptance analysis. Now I have a video to show. I guess I won't be able to run the video. So maybe what I'll do is once I finish, probably I can actually show this video again. Okay, hold on for some time. Or Rajan, can I share a video? I guess I have some.
Yes, sir. You can share.
Yeah, Rajan, how much time I have?
We have time of 20 minutes.
Perfect. That's good enough. That's good enough, Rajan.
You will have to again share the screen.
Yes, I'll do that.
The video.
Yeah, sure. So Rajan, now is it visible?
Yes, it is visible.
I think this video is quite famous. Some of you might have seen, you might have come across. Okay, it's not clear though, but still I will play this video. It may be slow in some of your cases. Now look at this. There's a two-wheeler. There's a two-wheeler which is coming from this side. Okay, and there's a car coming from this side. Okay, this is captured in CCTV camera. And look at it. So it's completely vehicle coming from the wrong side, completely judging gap in a wrong way. There was a two-wheeler which was coming from this side, and there was a, now look at this two-wheeler. Okay, he's trying to cross and he misjudged the gap. Again, there was an intersection. Now look at this bus. This bus is trying to cross. He did not judge it properly. There is a complete collision. Okay, there is a crash. Look at this two-wheeler trying to cross. There's a crash. Trying to cross. Has it?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So all these intersections are at intersection. All these crashes are at intersection. Now, and they are crashing on each other. So that means this clearly indicates that intersections are complex. Okay, the decision making at intersection is not that easy, and therefore we need some kind of assistance. We need to give some assistance to the drivers when we come across the intersections. Okay, now there are of course several ITS applications. There are several ITS applications. One such application is intersection conflict warning system. Okay, where you warn drivers in advance whether to cross or not to cross based upon the detection. You detect the vehicles on the approaches at the intersection, and then you give this information to the another driver on different approach, on another approach. Okay, so several ITS technologies that we have deployed. Just to give an example, this is the national highway, okay, NH65. This side you have Mumbai, this side you have Hyderabad. So this highway right from Mumbai to Pune, Pune to Solapur, Solapur, it comes to Hyderabad, and then it goes to Vijayawada. Okay, that is this highway NH65. Okay, I guess most of the people, you know, traveling from Pune to Solapur, they might be aware of this. Now this is the highway. IIT Hyderabad is located just besides this highway. Okay, so it's a prime location away from Hyderabad city. So this is the roads inside the campus. So campus is here actually. You can imagine campus is here, and this is entry, and this is the exit. Now what we have done is we have developed several technologies. For example, across this National Highway 65 for around 30 to 35 kilometers, we have deployed Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and CCTV cameras, okay, along the highway at 6 locations, so as to see the penetration rate of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and even vehicle detection using video image processing. We are working on that. We have a team working on it. So you see all these poles. There is a location here. There is a location here. There is a location here. Okay, these are the points where we have placed all these sensors. Inside the campus, we have a speed enforcement system also. At exit, we have developed a conflict vehicle merging system, okay, where we warn the drivers when to merge and when not to merge on the national highway, because we came across a couple of accidents even when vehicles were trying to merge on the national highway. Okay, people were not able to see because people have to look behind when if somebody is coming from with a high speed on the national highway. We want to warn them in real time. So we have deployed here a, a, a merging warning system. And then inside the campus, we developed a ICWS, that is intersection conflict warning system. about which I'm going to talk about. Fine. So this is the intersection. Okay, this is the intersection. This is one of the intersections inside the campus. What we have done is we have come up with the new signages. Okay, we assured ourselves that it won't deviate from the standards given by Indian Rules Congress. So we maintained those standards. Add on to those standards, we have used some text messages to inform drivers about the vehicles on other approaches. Now, to give an example, since this is a research work, we thought let's try using different types of sensors. So what we have done is we have used laser detector, ultrasonic radar, microwave detector, loop coil to detect the presence of the vehicle on different approaches, and then warn the driver in advance whether there is somebody coming or not. Just to give an example, if suppose this is the major road, this is the minor road. Now if you are traveling from this side, and you want to cross the intersection, okay, you are detected here, you will be detected here actually by this ultrasonic radar detector, okay, and this information will be given to this vehicle on this signboard. Okay, so this vehicle, if suppose it is behind, he will get to know that there is a vehicle coming from this side. And even this vehicle, this major road, will be detected with this laser detector, and this information will be given to this fellow using this information sign. So it works in real time. Okay, it detects, as soon as it detects the vehicle, it warns the driver on the other side. Now please understand, it is simple, it looks simple, but really it's not, because detection itself is again a big hurdle for us. And there are several reasons, because non-standard vehicles, infrastructure is not standard, the weather condition, daytime, nighttime, when it is heavily raining, the detection becomes very difficult. And if you give one wrong message, please understand, the driver is going to end up with a crash. Okay, so you have to be very careful. So that's why we first deployed this inside the campus. Okay, and then we are working on its mechanism, and this is how it looks. Now on the right side, if you look at this, there's a vehicle here. Can you see there is a vehicle behind? Okay, there's a vehicle behind, and then now this vehicle came from this side, and this actually warns in real time. It warns in real time that there's a traffic entering. There's a entering traffic. Okay, and this is the signage which is facing minor road. Minor road means this road. So this is the signage which is facing minor road. Okay, this is the signage which is facing minor road. This. Now this indicates to the minor road vehicle about the conflicting traffic. Now there is a difference between these two signages. One is amber, one is red. Red is for minor approach, amber is for major approach, because we don't want the vehicles on the major road to stop. This is how it looks actually in the reality, in the field. Okay, it warns you in real time. And as I said, while merging on the highway, so this is the National Highway 65. This is our road which is merging. It's a ramp which is connecting to the National Highway. If you look at this, there is a detection system which we have deployed on the National Highway. It is based upon the loops. It's a loop detector. You can see here we have laid the loops on the road. Once the vehicle arrives on this, okay, it will detect. So I can actually show you in real time also. I didn't think of this. Suddenly it came in my mind that I can actually show you in real time as well. So let's see in real time also. Give me some time. First, let me finish this part. So this is how it looks. This is the National Highway, okay, and there's a vehicle actually entering into the National Highway, onto the National Highway, okay, and it warns in real time. It tells all these vehicles that there's a vehicle actually entering. So it's a cautious message to the vehicles on the National Highway as well. And I will show you how it actually looks like. So Rajan, is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so just a minute, Rajan. I'm trying to access the CCTV camera live, okay, so that I can give them the demo. So this is a live video, actually live feed. Okay, I'm accessing from my office. Are you able to see, all of you? Rajan, are they able to see?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Are you able to see
It is
that?
visible.
Yeah. Now, on the same highway, actually, okay, day before yesterday, we had an accident. You know, one truck fellow went onto this pole. Okay, unfortunately, he thought it was. He's saying that he was sleepy though, and he completely went onto this warning system, and then again we erected it. So we have also deployed one sensor on this national highway. Okay, here there's one sensor called as Turtle. Okay, which is based upon the laser technology. I'm accessing that as well live, and I'm going to tell you how it detects the vehicle. So this is how it detects the vehicle. See, all of you try to see this carefully. So this is the count. Currently, vehicles are passing on the highway, and you can see there is a count on the highway. Can you see just now two-wheeler passed? The speed of the two-wheeler was 42 km/h. So as soon as the two, it's live streaming. Okay, it's streaming live now. But I can just cross verify this with. I can show you even with the video on. So let me do this thing. I will keep video on one side. Can you see my both the videos? Both this thing? Rajan, can you confirm?
Yes,
Rajan,
sir.
is it visible?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So for example, this two-wheeler is going from wrong side. See, this two-wheeler went from wrong side. So here it will come two-wheeler, two-wheeler. Look at this arrow direction. Look at this arrow direction. It is on wrong side. Can you see that? And it is traveling
Yes.
at 53. It traveled at 53 km/h. That speed he is traveling. Now, for example, let's say car went, see, light motor vehicle, car went. Okay. Now, for example, let's say another vehicle. And you can find out even speed. The car went with 63 km. Then there is a, see, there is a rickshaw and there's a two-wheeler. Can you see there is a three-wheeler means rickshaw and there's a two-wheeler. Again, one two-wheeler went. Again, two-wheelers went. See, you can see here their detection. So it's online actually. It's currently online. I'm actually showing you in real time that the detection, the speeds, in which lane they're traveling, in which direction they are traveling, everything can be detected actually. So this fellow went very high speed. See, can you see that car just went? It went with almost 100 kmph. You can easily see that. Look at it. So anybody who even goes in wrong direction also, we get to know that there are how many wrong directions. Okay, how many people travel in a wrong direction? And believe me, we identified in peak hour there were 200 people traveling in wrong direction, which is not a joke. 200 people, and then we reported to police that, see, this is the data we have, and there's so many people, because wrong direction also results into an accident. Because many times when you're crossing the road here, you will not look for a person who is coming from the opposite direction. Okay, you will not look, and that is what happens. Just to give an example of one wrong direction accident. So this is the accident which happened while exiting. Okay, I don't know if it is wrong direction or what. This merging happened very drastically, and suddenly that rickshaw toppled. You can see there's a rickshaw which came and it toppled. There was an accident here. Okay, so there's a problem with the merging. Okay. So there's a nighttime somebody nighttime, what happened is one fellow actually crashed onto pedestrians. Okay, so we are actually able to track all the accident in life. Okay, so for example, now let's see a wrong direction accident. Okay, so this is the vehicle which is trying to cross, and now there will be some another vehicle which is coming, okay, from the opposite side. See, there's a vehicle which came from opposite side, and then there's an accident on the highway. This is on the highway, by the way. So this is on the highway. So like this, you'll come across several incidents which you need to capture, and you need to capture and you need to understand. Okay, so now this is how it works in live. I told you about vehicle tracking. Looks like there is no vehicle exiting from the campus, and that's why this is not on. But this is how it works actually. So you can see here one pole. Can you see, all of you? I don't know in your screen it's visible or not, but there's a yellow pole here. Okay, and this pole is actually fitted with one sensor at the top. This is virtual loop detector. Now this sensor, what it does is it detects the vehicle which is coming from this side and actually displays here. Okay, so see, this is again one fellow going in wrong direction. Okay, and he will be detected here. See, this two-wheeler went in wrong direction. See, this arrow changed. That means this two-wheeler went in wrong direction. Speed was 30 kilometers per hour. So likewise, you get to know several things. Okay, I'll move on to the presentation part. See, this vehicle came and then now it is blinking. Can you see that? In video it is not clear, but this vehicle came and it started blinking. All of you, it may be visible to you. It is blinking because this vehicle is merging, because it is detected actually. So, however, this is the last slide, Rajan, and thereafter we can move on to question answer session. Okay, there are several challenges. It's not that easy to deploy these kind of things. What are those challenges? First one is the slow infrastructure growth compared to growth of vehicles. The rate at which the vehicles are getting added upon Indian roads, it's drastic. It's drastic. Though we consider it as 7 or 8% in our calculations, but the actual rate is too high. Okay, now the purchasing power has gone up. Anybody can buy a car. Buying car is not a complex task. If somebody even earns 30,000-40,000 per month, to buy one car or a two-wheeler, it has become easier because you get loan, you get banks provide you, facilitate you. So the rate at which the vehicles are coming on Indian roads and the rate at which the infrastructure is developed, there is no match. Okay, the pace is not matching. So infrastructure is as it is, and therefore a lot of focus has to be given on the infrastructure as well. Okay, second thing is the non-lane based chaotic traffic, largely different from the western traffic. Okay, this is something very difficult to account for. The non-chaotic, the chaotic traffic or the non-lane based, people don't follow lanes. Okay, people come up from wrong side. So again, it becomes additional task, a complex task to account for in the modeling. ITS used for efficient traffic management in developed countries cannot be directly used in India. That is something we can't adopt. We can't use the technology directly from the Western world. From the foreign countries. We need to have our own technology because our requirements are totally different. Our situations are different. Okay. Now, lack of resources for maintenance and operation. Believe me, this is the most tough job. You deploy something, but maintenance is something which you need to account for. That cost itself is too high. Maintaining resources is very difficult, and therefore that cost has to be accounted in your project right from the beginning. Okay, and that's a huge cost again. Then less demand for automation. Now the problem is, from the higher authorities, they should also look for this kind of interventions. Okay, and if there is a demand, definitely we can deploy, we can do all these things. So from the top authorities, we should see some possibilities for this kind of interventions. The technology adaptation, very important. People should look for that. And then lack of user awareness. Once you have it, probably we need to make people aware. User is nothing but all road users. If I'm walking, I'm a road user. If I'm using bicycle, I'm a road user. So whoever is using the road, he should be aware of the technology which you are adopting. So with this, I would like to finish my talk. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and the floor is open for questions. I can take a couple of questions. I can see my professor here. Professor Wag is there, I guess, from Walchand College of Engineering. Sir, how are you? I think you're on mute, and probably.
Yes. We have muted the participants.
Wag,
yes,
sir.
yes. I think now he can speak.
Wag, sir, are you there?
Wag, sir, your voice is not audible yet. Probably you need to. It's unmute though, but maybe.
Yes, we have unmuted Wag, sir.
I think some audio system problem with Wag, sir.
Okay.
Wag, sir, please check your connection. So again, we can mute and mute you. Now this session is open for the discussion. Participants can put their queries in chat box.
They can ask directly. They can put in chat box.
Yes.
I'm comfortable with anything.
Digvijay, sir, please check your chat box also. Maybe the participant will send you the questions.
Yeah, so there are several questions. Let's see one by one. Satish Kumar.
Okay.
Satish is talking about PIEV theory, okay, perception, interaction, emotion, and violation. Sir, by this model used to drivers for knowing predict PI. I mean, is this elaborate, and the importance of safety measures for drivers by PIEV theory? Okay. I did not get your question completely, but I will try to answer. See, understand this. PIV theory is completely different. Okay, when you talk about perception reaction times, there's altogether it's done in altogether a different way. Okay, so reaction time. When you talk about perception reaction time of the driver, please understand this. How much time driver takes to understand the situation and to react to that situation. Now it all depends upon person to person, as I said, and several other parameters. Now PIV theory, which tells you about perception reaction time in case of stopping sight distance, which is around 2.5 seconds. That value has come from several experiments they have done. Okay. And in that experiments, they found that around 90% of people are able to react within that time. That value corresponds to 90th percentile. Remember that. Okay. So the 2.5 second is 90th percentile value, and which says that it is that 90% of the people are able to react within that time. And these models have nothing to do with the perception reaction time, because then you have to approach each individual in person and ask him about his perception reaction. And I don't know what you will ask, it can't be captured that way. So the experiments for perception reaction time are altogether different. We do that experiment, but we do that using a driving simulator. So how do we do it? Just to give an example, I'll show you generally how do we account for perception reaction time. So for example, can you see my screen, all of you? Are you able to see my screen?
No, sir. Please share once again.
Are you able to see now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So for example, this is a driving simulator study. Okay, it's a very high-end simulator. Fine, it's a high-end simulator. It's worth around 50 lakhs. Okay, but it's not. Um, it's a fixed base simulator. Okay, it does not have any actuator at the base. No degrees of freedom. With the degrees of freedom, it costs around 1 crore plus. Okay. Now in this case, what we are planning is we are trying to understand the perception reaction time of the driver when he or she is talking on the phone or texting on the phone. And then how do you do it? So see, we can't do this kind of experiments in field. Please understand. Okay, it's very difficult and it needs ethical approval. There are several things you have to go through. Okay, so on simulator, what we do is we try to understand. Now look at this fellow. He's chatting on the phone. He's actually texting on the phone. And now there will be suddenly one vehicle which will come. So can you see this vehicle coming? You might have seen. And then he reacted to that vehicle. Now within how much time he reacted? You do this kind of study. You do this study for several participants, and then you come to this value. That is how the perception reaction times are calculated, but we did not account for that in our study. Yeah. So somebody saying, can we add automatic speed breaker systems with this research to actually slow down the vehicle in case of city roads? I mean, come up with your ideas. I mean, if you have ideas, see, nothing is impossible. So it has, of course, you have to do a lot of literature review, and then you have to find out possible ways how effectively it can be used. So how many intersections did this cost cover? So we studied around 4 to 5 intersections. Okay. Somebody's asking in binary logic model, why we take different values for male and female drivers for temporal and spatial gap acceptance. So we don't take different values for temporal, and whatever we observe in the field, we account for those values. So if female driver is driving, whatever gaps she comes across, she's anchoring, we account for those gaps. Okay, and that's why they are different. Then somebody saying, can we derive gap acceptance time from PIV theory? Okay, I think I've covered that. Has nothing to do with gap acceptance. Yes, but gap acceptance itself involves perception reaction time. There's no doubt about it. And it all depends upon your expertise in the driving, your mood at that point of time, the vehicle you're driving, your gender, and several other parameters. The experience matters. Okay. Somebody saying in the system we can analyze unavoidable breakdown vehicles. No, these are extreme cases. So generally we avoid extreme cases. So the vehicles which are in a broke down condition, this is an extreme case. 1 or 2 cases you'll find in a data of like thousands. So it's an outlier. You can't account for that, and there's no point in accounting for that. Please understand that. So how much reliable, got the answer, how much reliable the software gap, what is this gap time is? There is no software. We did it on our, we use some statistical tools to develop the models. We did not use any kind of software. Okay. You have to look into the video. We have, of course, used some videographic techniques to extract the data from the field, but there's no software asset. It's a normal video recording software. Sir, can you tell is the cost of the equipment installation of anti-collision device? Okay, the one, if you're talking about the one which we have installed, see, the one which we have involved, I cannot make cost for it because it's experimental research in which we have deployed different sensors to see how they are effective in short, which sensor works effectively. Now what we observed that virtual loop cameras and the loop detectors, they work quite fine. They work very nice. And if you need cost of that, definitely I can come back to you. You can email me on my email address. So my email is shown over there. Okay. I can work out that. We are working on the detection rates. we are working on the efficiency of the system, okay, because we have installed it like 6 to 7 months back. So once we work on all those aspects, probably then it makes more sense to deploy, even on the national highways and so on. So definitely we are going to take it at higher level, but of course for campus level and all, you can definitely go ahead with the deployment. I can tell you the cost. So please email me on my email. I've shared my email address here. So what was the cost? Yeah, I talked about cost. I can share in detail. How can we reduce accidents? So in overall the country, our infrastructure needs to be updated, but still people need to follow rules, etc. Model is best considering the length of highway. Can it be implemented throughout country highways? So see, I understand when it comes to the crashes, and it's a big talk. I can give another talk which can last for 2-3 hours. When it comes to road crashes, okay, there are several factors which are responsible for that, and everybody has some role to play with regard to that. It's not only road users, it's not only police or law enforcement, it's not only NGOs who have to work on this aspect. So I I'm sorry for that. So yeah, I mean it's a big talk actually. I mean it's difficult to cover in this. How can we reduce accidents? So in overall the country, our infrastructure needs to be, yeah, that is what I told you. I mean, there are several factors you can look into, you need a good infrastructure, you need people to learn. See, I gave a talk last month to all driver training schools in Maharashtra. And my talk was based upon traffic safety, what aspects they should teach to the new learners, because they need to understand all traffic rules and regulations, how they need to anticipate the situation while driving. There are several aspects you can cover. So I'm sorry, I won't be able to talk about that right now, because I guess most of you know the thing what needs is the implementation on field. That's it. So my talk last month was completely based upon all these aspects, that how you can reduce the accidents. There should be bypass for each city. It should be planned properly through development. Yes, I agree. Calculus, sir, about the calculation of time gap, is there any standard method? There are several methods. Okay, as I said, if you're talking about only time gap, you just have to measure the time gap, right? Now, at what accuracy you want to measure, it all depends. You want to go at milliseconds, that's fine, you can account for. But you need to know that for what purpose you're going to use it. If you're not going to use it for a very fine-tuned modeling, even a gap value 2 seconds, 3 seconds, it makes sense. But please understand, if you are considering intersections like high-speed intersection where vehicles are traveling at 100 kmph, just take an example of 100 kmph or 80 kmph. Now, if somebody is traveling at 80 kmph or 100 kmph, he or she is covering a distance of more than 25 to 30 meters in 1 second, which is huge. Okay, which is huge distance. In 1 second, somebody is covering more than 30 meters. Now, 1 second, 30 meters, half second, 15 meters. If you take again half of that, 7 meters. So it all matters to what accuracy you want to go. Okay, at what fraction of second you want to go. So it has to be pre-calculated wisely, and then it has to be considered. Excellent resource person, well delivered lecture. Thank you so much for the appreciation. Have you published this research work so that we can further? Please visit my website. Go to my website. Just search my name on Google. Okay, you'll find my website. All the publications are there. Yes, it's already a published work. The work regarding ICWS, it is under making. So we are working on the publication part. But work on the gap acceptance, already we have published more than half a dozen papers in peer-reviewed journal. Okay, these are all top journals. We have already published that work. It's available. You can please feel free to download. Contact me if you need papers. I can definitely provide you. Okay, please give me guideline for PhD in IIT Hyderabad. I guess this is not the forum. Probably, please email me in person.
Sir, we can send your mail ID to the participants, so
Yes,
they
yes,
can
yes.
contact you for their queries.
I'm sorry, I won't be able to answer personal questions because there are other
Yes, yes.
hundreds of participants over here, and it doesn't really make sense. Let's be professional in this case. You can text me on WhatsApp. I'm okay with that. I'm quite comfortable. Somebody's asking, what about if a physically disabled person is driving? Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, needs to be accounted for. But then you need to, as I said, what is the percentage of it? If it is a 10% of the population, 5% of the population, it depends again what is your population size also. You need to definitely account for that. Why not? We did not come across any such drivers who were physically challenged, so we did not account in our modeling part. But suppose you have a society somewhere most of the physically challenged people live, and then probably, yeah, I mean, why not? You can give consideration for that as well. Yes, I guess, yeah. I mean, that's it from my side.
So, sir, shall we conclude now?
We should conclude. I mean, I think, I guess Vak sir is now able to.
Yes.
Okay.
He is able to.
Vak sir, please check your connection. No, sir, you are not audible.
Vak sir, I think I should call you I will call you in person probably. And
Vak sir, please unplug your cable and again connect. Sir, again your voice is not audible. Some connection issue with you. So Digvijay sir, thank you for an excellent presentation. Let's have a few quick feedback so you will understand what is going in our APDP.
sure. I mean, please feel free to discuss. I'm always there. I've been delivering lectures on several colleges exclusively in Maharashtra. My intention always has been to reach them, to reach people. It's very important to socialize with people, and we need to share our knowledge. That's it. That's what I feel. There's no point in keeping knowledge with yourself. So definitely.
Singh, please unmute yourself. We'll take
I
another
think
feedback.
you need to unmute yourself.
Amol Thorbole sir.
Unmute. Hello.
Yeah,
yes, Neha, now you are audible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Good morning
So
to.
please introduce yourself and give feedback, your experience.
Yeah, sure. Hello, sir. This is Neha Singh from Cummins College of Engineering, Pune. Very good morning to our eminent speaker, Digvijay sir, all the coordinators and all the fellow participants. I must first of all thank to Dr. Madhav B. Kumtekar sir for telling me about this FTP. He personally called me for this and he said, you must join this FTP as it is going to be very useful and very informative. So thanks to him. And I completely agree with him. All the topics that were taken under this FDP. Hello?
We can hear you.
Am I audible?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, okay. Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So the topics which you took, or like all the topics that you took in the session were really nice and informative. Like you talked about FRP, you talked about climate change and water management, composite structures. And I must say today's lecture by Digvijay sir, sir, I really liked the way you included real life videos to how you track the accidents, how you keep a record and everything. It was very nice.
Thank you.
That was a new approach, I must say. I haven't seen other people including real life videos in their presentations. So that was very nice. And the overall FDP was very well coordinated. And I also must say about the question answer round, the thing which I have noticed in this particular FDP, the questions that were coming from the participants, it was very like even the speaker wouldn't have thought that these questions could come up from the participants. That I've noticed. It was very well answered by all the speakers. And yes, overall, very nice experience, sir. Very well coordinated. I congratulate to all the coordinators for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha. Now, next participant, Amol Thorbole, sir. Amol, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Please,
Am I audible?
please introduce
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah. I'm Amol Thorbole, working as assistant professor in Department of Civil Engineering, Rajaram Bapu Institute of Technology, Rajaram Nagar, Sangli. Digvijay, sir, very close to your alma mater. It always feel great to attend workshops organized by our alma mater. We are the alumni of the Government College of Engineering, Karar. In a simple words, I can say that the workshop was a very good blend of practice and research. So this was a totally engaging workshop. Learning was happening for me as well as for all participants on many different levels. Coordinators created an environment where we were able to learn from one another, as well as the exercises and the activities. Coordinators and resource person, expert persons advise and skillfully guided it through. I am very grateful to coordinator and all resource person for engaging for last 4 days. To all participants, thank you Rajan sir and Amar sir for your warm and encouraging faculty development program. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Amol. Now, another participant, Satish Kumar AS. Satish, please unmute yourself.
Hi, sir. I am audible.
Yes, now you are audible. Please introduce yourself.
Sir, I am A.S. Kumar, working as a Department of Civil Engineering.
Be careful. I guess you're on the road. If I'm not wrong, if you're on the road, be careful.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So you can
Sir,
hold yourself.
first of all, I thank you, Rajan sir and Amar sir. First of all, I thank to Amar sir, Rajan sir for organizing this FTP. All the sessions of this FTP are very nice, sir. First of all,
we can hear you. Go ahead.
Satish, please continue. Your voice is audible.
Yes, sir.
Now we'll take our next feedback from Aparna Pai. Some network issue with Satish. Aparna, are you there?
I guess you also have a talk in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Amar Singh, sir?
Sir, actually, we are trying to take a few feedback for this session, and in afternoon session, we'll take 4 to 5.
Okay.
Since last 5 days, they are in only mute mode. Nobody going to participate. They only put in the chat box. That's why we are giving the opportunity.
Great. No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Aparna, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm audible, sir?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good morning all. Myself, I'm Professor Aparna Pai from Cummins College of Engineering, Pune. First of all, I would like to convey my regards to Kumtekar sir. Again, because of Kumtekar sir, we came to know about this FTP. Very nicely organized. Rajan sir and Amar Singh sir, the coordination was very good. The Telegram platform was used properly for the proper communications. There were no gaps in between. The messages were sent in a proper time. And most important is what I have seen the speakers. Like they were not ready to stop for 2 hours also. Given a chance, they could have talked 3 to 4 hours, so much into with lots of knowledge in them. So that was the best part of FDP. Today's session was very well organized because the case studies and hands-on videos were shown by Professor Digvijay sir. And overall, The FDP was very well organized. Thanks a lot for such a nice session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Aparna. Now we'll take, sir, last feedback from Namdev Raut, sir. Namdev, sir, please introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself.
I am head of the department at Government Polytechnic Nagpur. I am audible?
Yes,
Yes, sir, you are audible.
I am HOD in the Civil Department at Government Polytechnic Nagpur.
Sir, share your experience about this FDP.
Sir, it is very nice experience. All the research, it is very good and new. Some of the research are beyond imagination. Means there is the civil engineering is nowadays become interdisciplinary. It is final output of your FDP. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you, Namdev, sir, for joining with us. Now I request Professor Rajan Wankade, please summarize the session and offer vote of thanks to Professor Digvijay. Rajan?
Yes, sir.
Please summarize the session.
Okay, sir. So, at the last, we will conclude this session. So, I am very thankful to Professor Digvijay, sir, for sharing his valuable time. Professor Digvijay, sir, has given a very nice presentation. It was very much informative, and the application of the system which he developed is it's a little social in traffic and all these things. We really need it. Sir has introduced the intersection conflict warning system. We generally don't find such systems on the highways, roads. We only find the that turn left, turn right, stop and go, that red light symbols for the traffic. But the system which he has given, it is a new in the era of the transportation engineering. So first time we saw that signboards which gives the conflict warning if there is a traffic and if there is any other vehicle coming from the direction which we remains unaware of it due to the obstruction like buildings and the roads. That was really interesting and to look to it, because even government should take some initiatives for such type of system to be introduced in the traffic. So it was a very nice experience, sir, with you, and definitely the presentation which you made and the system which you have shown us was really interesting. You have shown that software also, which we never saw before. The vehicle which comes in the opposite direction, that can also be a check. That was the really interesting. So I am very much thankful to Professor Digvijay, sir. He has given his time to us, and he shown such type of experimental investigation regarding the traffic conflicts. So on behalf of the Government College of Engineering Karad and Government College of Engineering Nagpur, we are very thankful to you. Our participants are very happy to see you.
Thank you.
And they are also eager to ask the questions regarding your session and regarding your topics.
Sure.
So we will definitely share your mail ID to our participants also, so that they can communicate to you in future also.
Definitely.
And thank you very much, sir, for being with us for today's session.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It was nice to interact with you all. It would have been more interesting to have face-to-face talk.
Yes, sir.
That's always like, a teacher would love to, or a person who is delivering talk would love to have. But I really appreciate the initiatives taken by your college. Many thanks to Professor Rajan, many thanks to Professor Landke sir for giving me this opportunity and using this COVID pandemic situation so effectively, so wisely, that even after in such a terrible situation, we are able to interact with each other and share our knowledge. And I think it's really great thing. Please continue doing it. We are happy to help you. We are happy to share the knowledge we have. We are happy to take inputs from you people to improvise our knowledge further. I mean, that's how, you know, we learn. We both learn, you know. So let's keep doing this. Thank you so much once again for having me on this platform. Thank you. Have a nice day too.
Thank you, Professor Digvijay, for sparing your valuable time and excellent presentation. We'll be in touch with you, and we are always looking forward to take your guidance for our students and as our faculty research work.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Rajan. Thank you, Professor Lamia. See you then.
So I
Have a
declare
nice
this
day.
session is over. We'll start next session sharply at 2 p.m. And before that, there is one small announcement. For all kind of certification, your attendance is mandatory, as well as you have to submit your assignment in time. So thank you. We'll start next session at 2 p.m.